This was a very interesting night of hockey. And yet, we had a late day, and then I had to do my NFL power rankings for the Entertainment Guy channel. We did a live stream. We weren't able to do one yesterday for Patreon, so we did it today. Backed everything up, so I had to do the treadmill starting at about 15 minutes before the game started. So I had to do it fast as possible, which means I jogged at about 6 miles an hour on it, and had to make sure I didn't, push myself too far. It's the trick with getting into shape, is don't push yourself too hard. But it means that the notes on the early games was already going to be a challenge because 6 games started at the same time, which is always fun. 6 games at the same time, and anytime you switch channels from one game to the other, it's guaranteed the channel that you turned away from is where the action's going to be happening. That in mind, let's start things off with Carolina in against Boston. This is 2 games in a row. This is 2 games in a row where I've watched a team play a really good game in Boston and come out with 0 points. It was Montreal the other night, and it's Carolina tonight. I don't know what's going to happen when Boston starts playing really well, because they played okay tonight. They played okay against Montreal, but they have these bursts, and they keep it really, really close to the vest until then. First period, the Bruins get a power play. They were up 6-0 in shots early, but Carolina would control the puck from there. So for the rest of the period, Carolina kind of controls things. I'm watching the Carolina feed, and they get really excited about that. So that's why I enjoy watching the Carolina feed. Second period, the Canes were pushing it around the 3-minute mark. Reimer robbed the Bruins at about 9 minutes into that period. Really heavy pressure by the Bruins. He kept them off the board. And I thought Reimer played a very good game tonight. Another good game for him. That bodes well for Carolina as well. The Canes then had what they thought was a goal. Then they look at it on the replay. It went through the side of the net. And I'm trying to think of the last time I saw that where it actually went through the side of the net. I've seen, occasionally you'll see where the net lifts up and the puck goes underneath the net, but going through the netting is very, very rare. And and obviously it doesn't count. You can't score that way. It's more difficult to score that way, but they don't count. So third period still scoreless, end-to-end action the first 4 minutes. Not a ton of shots those first 4 minutes, but a lot of action and very few whistles. And not a lot of prime scoring opportunities either way. So this was a game that I felt like kind of favored Carolina. This was a great road game by the Canes. And then at 15:55, Coyle scores from Marchand and Heinen, and it shows just how deadly these guys are. Charlie Coyle with the goal. Fantastic feed by Marchand. And the goal was on a 3-on-2, and it is interesting too because Gardner was guilty of the turnover that led to that goal. The Bruins then pushed for another. Once they sensed any kind of weakness in Carolina, they pounced on it. Krejci scores the 200th goal of his career from McAvoy and Pastrnak at 17:03. So Krejci, big goal for him. Pretty good game for him as well. And this remarkable, fantastic, insane run at home continues for Boston. They still haven't lost in regulation yet. We're almost halfway through the season. We're over a third of the way through the season. They haven't lost in regulation at home yet. It is a crazy one. So 2-0 is your final. Reimer saves 32 out of 34. Halak gets his 49th career shutout in his 500th career game. So he saves all 24 shots he faced. Your 3 stars are Halak, Coyle, and Krejci. Hard to fault them giving Krejci a star when he gets his 200th goal. Coyle for getting the game winner. Halak for getting the shutout. I'll give an honorary star to Reimer, who had a great game. And without Reimer in net playing the way he did, this game would have been 3 or 4-0 because Boston would have scored earlier than they did. Power plays. Both teams went 0 for 2 on the power play. The shots, 10-9 Carolina in the first, 13-8 Boston in the second, and 12-6 Boston in the third. A lot of those shots, it felt like, were after that, with 5 minutes to go period, where they sensed they could just steal it. Final shots are 34-24 in favor of the Boston Bruins. So again, that run continues. Next up, a run stopped. Now, I have wanted to wear a Montreal jersey in a review for the last little while, to the point where I've been wearing Montreal jerseys twice in the last week and a half, with games late, and then I've had to change for the review because they didn't hold on, they didn't win it. So tonight, I didn't wear Montreal. They won it. It's not related, but it was a situation where I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. Danault scored from Gallagher at 19:59. This is a really key thing. First period, 1 second to go, the goal goes in, and it felt like this was good luck for the Habs. They're against a New York Islanders team that has been fantastic for most of this season. This result tonight has me wavering a bit on where I have the Islanders on that fantastic board that's behind this camera. And I thought this bode well for the Montreal Canadiens. Yes, that's the phraseology I was looking for there. Second period, the shots were heavily in the Habs' favor. A great game for them. But it made me kind of nervous because I'm like, you know what? They had a great game going against Boston for 45 minutes, and then it just fell apart, much like what Carolina had going for 55 minutes tonight against Boston. However, while it was a 1-goal lead and it felt familiar, Gallagher would change that with a goal from Weber and Danault at 13:30. The Islanders get a power play late, would not score on it. In the third period, Petrie scores from Suzuki 2 minutes and 12 seconds in. Smooth sailing, it's 3-0. No. Because it's the Habs, they have to make it difficult on themselves. 41 seconds later, Mayfield scores from Eberle and Pulock. It's 3-1. And then at 17:31, Barzal makes this a nail-biter from Leddy and Bailey. So it's 3-2, and you could tell as soon as that second goal went in, the whole crowd got kind of quiet, a little nervous, like, all right, we've watched these guys lose 8 in a row. This could end up being 9. The Islanders are pretty dangerous. The Islanders pushed in that last minute, could not put the puck past Price, and then Weber gets the empty netter from Thompson at 19:33. Absolutely sniped it from the other end of the rink. Great goal for Weber, and you could just feel the relief for the fans and for the players on the ice when that puck went in. I'm sure the players on the bench as well. Your final score is 4-2 for Montreal. Again, for the Islanders, has to be kind of frustrating. They had this amazing run of games where they were getting points in every single game. And now when you look at the standings, they're losing ground on the Capitals because the Capitals pretty much kept pace with them the whole way. Grice saves 36 out of 39. That should be a 36, not a 33. No. He didn't allow 6, but only 4 of them counted or anything like that. So that's 36 out of 39. Price saved 21 out of 23. Your 3 stars are Weber, Gallagher, and Danault. So kind of an amazing game for Montreal tonight. Power plays, the Islanders go 0 for 3, and Montreal decided we don't want a power play tonight because our power play isn't any good. And they're right. Shots were 12-7 Montreal in the first, 13-6 Montreal in the second, 15-10 Montreal in the third. They pressed in every single period, even with the lead in the third. Final shots 40-23 in favor of the Montreal Canadiens, and they finally get a win. So their last 2 games, it felt like they were getting better, and now tonight they're rewarded with a victory. So hopefully this will keep some of the Wolves at bay. But, in Montreal, things can be just as brutal as they are in Toronto. And so we'll see. We'll see if this quiets things down a little bit or what happens. But for now, Montreal, a little bit closer to a playoff spot tonight than they were last night. And that's really all you can ask for. Minnesota. Yeah, this does it. So for Wild fans who've been on me about where they are in the power rankings, they have moved up a lot since Saturday. This result tonight is the one where I go, okay, all right, this is what you want to see. They went into Florida, and Florida played, well, they play the way Florida sometimes does. Barkov scores from Yandel and Huberdeau at 9:54, power play goal. Huberdeau scored from Vetrano at 14:26. And it's 2-0. 2 things you notice was that Florida was ahead, and again, a lot of fans that don't apparently get seats in the lower bowl. And I understand that if it's ticket prices or whatever it is, just it's so strange to watch because you got Boston where it's full, Montreal's mostly full, Jersey there's empty seats, Columbus there's empty seats as well, Arizona there's going to be empty, but it just maybe it's because they're bright red. I don't know. Second period, the shots were 17-6 for the Panthers, and this felt like this is how the Wild are on the road. This is what you get worried about when the Wild hit the road. They have a pretty poor road record, and here we go again. But Zucker would score at 9:26, and then 3.5 minutes later, it's Zuccarello scoring from Hunt and Zucker. So it's 2-2. And going into the third, the shots are severely in favor of the Florida Panthers, and yet somehow the Wild have a tie game. The shots were 35-14 in favor of the Panthers 4 minutes into that third period. That's for the whole game, not for the third period. It wasn't that crazy a third period. And the Wild, it looked like we're trying to steal one. Soucy would score from Parise and Rask at 4:49. It's 3-2 Minnesota. Sevier then saved a certain goal. Colton Sevier, nice play there. I'm trying to think of who else saved that certain goal as well. But it was in behind Drieger, and it was kept out. I want to say it was Weegar, but I don't think it was Weegar. Anyways, Sevier was one of the two that helped keep that puck out of the net. But an empty netter, it's Luke Cunnin from Jonas Brodin at 18:59. Minnesota went in. They won a game in regulation. They beat a team that's in a playoff spot in regulation. They do it on the road. They ticked every box tonight that I wanted to see from Minnesota. This is a good result. Considering what happened in other locations tonight, Minnesota's in pretty good shape. Kakkonen, 44 saves on 46 shots. This kid doesn't just have a fun name anymore. He's a pretty fun goalie to watch. Drieger, 22 saves on 25 shots. He doesn't get a back-to-back shutout or anything. His stats for the two games are pretty good. We'll see who they throw in for their next game. Your 3 stars are Kakkonen, Zucker, and Huberdeau. Power plays, Minnesota 0 for 1, Florida 1 for 3. The shots, 13-5 in favor of Florida in the first, 19-9 Florida in the second, and 14-12 Florida in the third. Final shots, 46-26 in favor of the Florida Panthers. So, tough result for them. Understandably frustrating for Florida fans. And this is kind of old Florida. This is what we would see from them a lot up until this last couple of weeks. It's troubling to see them get a 2-goal lead coming out of the first and then lose it. So we'll see if Florida's going into some more troubling waters here. And for Minnesota, great victory overall. All right, next up, Vegas. Vegas has now won 4 in a row. And for New Jersey, not a bad result considering the stressor it has to be to know that your coach is out and to be dealing with somebody else behind the bench, especially since Hines was fired this afternoon. So you've seen John Hines up till last night, probably saw him this morning, and then he's gone. There was an early Vegas power play. They wouldn't score on that. New Jersey had a very good first period, actually scored first. Palmieri scores from Severson and Coleman at 16:31. So coming out of the first period, New Jersey's up 1-0. And they're the better team in terms of how Vegas is playing to that point. They weren't playing very well. The Devils were doubling Vegas in shots overall early in that second period. Then it happened. Stevenson would score from Tuck and Nosek at 5:24. So welcome to the team, Chandler Stevenson. First game, get a goal. Don't mind if I do. Marchessault was then robbed by Blackwood. Marchessault came into tonight, I believe, 7 games without a goal. And so it looked like he was snake bit. Not for long. However, Bratt would score from Severson and Zaka at 14:17. So that's Severson's second helper. And then Vegas challenged for goalie interference. And the referee looked at the replay and went, no. So then not only did the Devils make it 2-1, but they also come out of it with a power play. So this overall was a really good, turn of events for New Jersey. They wouldn't score on that, and in the third period, at 1 minute and 5 seconds, Marchessault finally gets a goal from Carlson and Smith. He enjoyed that a lot to the point where he did it again from Englund and Schmidt at 5:04. Vegas then gets a power play as New Jersey starts to unravel, as they're known to do. Marchessault makes it a hat trick. He gets that power play goal from Tuck and Smith at 9 minutes and 40 seconds. Alex Tuck continues his amazing run recently. He has picked up his play over this 4-game winning streak. It is no coincidence they've started scoring goals and winning games. That's kind of how it works. So it was 4-2. Hischier would score from Hall and Palmieri at 10 minutes, which made it close. However, Vegas would get another power play, and they would kind of take the wind out of the sails of New Jersey from then on. New Jersey calls a timeout with 2 minutes and 13 seconds left, but they're not getting into this. It's not going to happen. Your final score is 4-3, and it looks like this road trip was exactly what the doctor ordered for Vegas. They solidify their spot as a top 3 team in that division, and they move a little bit closer to Edmonton ahead of them, and a little further ahead of San Jose behind them. Subban saved 32 out of 35. Again, Malcolm Subban is doing very, very well playing regularly. He played back-to-back games, and he comes out with 2 wins. Blackwood, 26 saves on 30 shots. Your 3 stars are Marchessault, Tuck, and Palmieri. Power plays, Vegas goes 1 for 3, New Jersey 0 for 2. Shots were 17-7 in the first for New Jersey, 11-10 New Jersey in the second, and in the third, Vegas comes out and shuts it down, 13-7 in Vegas' favor. Final shots, 35-30 in favor of the New Jersey Devils. But it's another frustrating result for the Devils and their fans, I would imagine. And they take another step further back from being in the playoff race now that they've won 9 and lost 18, including the 4 extra time points. So it's frustrating, but for Vegas, their frustration appears to be done for now with 4 wins in a row. Longest streak they've had in quite a while. That being said, I got to change boards. All right, Toronto. I don't know what happened here. I'm being honest. I'm not being facetious, sarcastic, or any of that wonderful stuff. I genuinely don't know what happened tonight. In that first period, they had really good puck control. And there would have been a lot more notes if I wasn't on the treadmill. I will say this, they had really good puck control. Spezza looked fantastic out there tonight. I think he's playing the best hockey he has in quite a while. Watched him a lot in Dallas last year. I thought his career was basically done at the end of the season. He is showing right now with Toronto, he still has something to give. Now, they did turn the puck over in between the first and the second. The TSN panel, it was Jeff O'Neill that brought up they were turning the puck over too much. To which Dave Poulin answered with, no, it's a puck control game and you're going to have turnovers, you're going to be part of it. And I agreed with both of them. Too many turnovers, yes, it wasn't costing them, and they were way ahead in shots. So it was a good road period for them. Second period, Carter Hart made some very important saves early. They turned out to be important because Lawton would score from Hayes and Niskanen at 8:49. The Flyers got a power play shortly thereafter, but they wouldn't score on it. So coming out of that second period, it's 1-0 Philadelphia. And it looks like this could go either way. The game was very even through the second period and early in the third. And the Flyers, while they were playing well, the Leafs were keeping up with them. The Leafs had dominated them in the first. So you're like, all right, the Leafs are going to break through at some point. And then they do. Dermott scores a goal, and Spezza gets the helper. Spezza's now got, I think, 7 points in his last 7 games, something along those lines. And that's at 8:38. So for Leafs fans, you're watching this going, hey, we got 11 and a half minutes left in Philly. It's a tie game. Things are looking up for Toronto. And then Giroux scored from Konechny and Myers at 10 minutes. The Flyers got a power play shortly after that. The Leafs killed it. So again, it's 2-1 and it's close. But Konechny scored from Myers at 16:33. They pull the goalie. Farabee scores from Provorov at 17:54. And then in the last minute of the game, Gostisbehere scores from Sanheim at 19:21. Van Riemsdyk scores from Myers and Gostisbehere at 19:33. Ghost with a couple of points. Myers came out of tonight with 3 assists. And it's a 6-1 loss. Now, what I kind of also, as a joke, blame this on, and I'm being facetious, is that they had they do the quiz in between the first and the second period, and they said, who's been the best MVP for their team? Taking Connor McDavid out of the equation, and they had McKinnon, they had Eichel, they had Freddie Anderson, and I'm trying to think of the other one. I think it was Pasternak they had in there too, I think. And a couple agreed with McKinnon, and I believe one of them said Eichel, but Poulin said Anderson. I don't know. It was 2 of them said McKinnon and Poulin said Anderson. I'm like, no. And the reason he said Freddie Anderson kind of makes sense, in that he said, when Freddie Anderson doesn't play, they don't win, and he mentioned the record without Anderson. I didn't think that was a statement of Anderson being an MVP for the Leafs as much as how poor the record of their backups has been. That's how I take it. But again, I thought, because again, if you're going to argue he's more important to the team than McKinnon's been to Colorado, you lost me at that one. That's one of those ones that I just look at and I'm like, I can't defend that at all. Power plays, Toronto went 0 for 1, so they didn't draw very many power plays. Philly went 0 for 3. Your shots, 15-7 Toronto in the first, 8-8 in the second, and 14-5 for Philadelphia in the third. Final shots, 29-28 in favor of Philadelphia. So for Toronto, they got to figure out how this got away from them in the third period. And there's an issue with closing out games apparently that they've had this year, and maybe it's starting to creep back. So maybe the newness of Sheldon Keefe and that wonderful feeling of, hey, we're free, maybe that's sort of wearing off and they're getting into some bad habits again. This is where Sheldon Keefe has got to step in and make sure that stops immediately because tomorrow night they're playing again. So they can't afford to get into bad habits. All right, moving along. Arizona in against Columbus. For Columbus, again, it's two steps back now. This is not what they needed. In the first period, on a power play, Keller scores from Dvorak and Kessel at 19:11. It is the only power play Arizona would draw all night. And yet, they come out of that first period with a lead. They were leading in shots, and they played a very good road period. Second period, 2:24 into that period, so barely started the period. Kukin scores from Milano and Murray. So at 2:24, we were in a tie game. Columbus went back to the power play. They wouldn't score on that one. So Arizona, whose penalty kill has not been anywhere near as good as it was last year, won one game there, and they allowed a power play goal, but they scored one as well. Christian Fischer would then score from Soderberg at 9:35. And then Krause would score from Soderberg and Goligoski at 16:39. So Soderberg had a pretty decent game for himself. Not that you'd know it from the 3 stars, but he did. And so it's 3-1 after 2 periods. Third period, Columbus started the third with a power play. They wouldn't score on that. However, Texier would score shortly after from Atkinson and Foligno at 2 minutes and 13 seconds. I mentioned Texier in the preview this morning as a guy that I would have expected more offense from. Maybe we'll start seeing that now. Columbus pushed for the tie around the 4-minute mark. They could not solve Kemper. Solving Darcy Kemper was not in the cards for them tonight. Soderberg would hit the empty net at 19 minutes and 24 seconds. And your final score is 4-2 for Arizona, a team that is destined to be 7th on the power rankings for the rest of the year. Because they're excellent. They win games. They do lose their share along the way, but usually when you even it all out, they're still very, very good. So don't underestimate the Coyotes. Darcy Kemper, 33 saves on 35 shots. Korpisalo, 24 saves on 27 shots. Kemper, Fischer, and Kukin are your 3 stars. Power plays. Arizona 1 for 1, I should say. The Columbus Blue Jackets 1 for 3 shots. 11-9 Arizona in the first. Columbus 16-9 in the second and 10-8 in the third. Final shots 35-28 in favor of the Columbus Blue Jackets, who come out on the losing end. Close game, decent game for Columbus, but ultimately they lose the game. And if they keep playing this way, I don't know. At what point do you as a general manager look and go, well, we need to probably make some changes? Moving along from that, Tampa goes into Nashville tonight, and this was a game that was played like a playoff game. These teams came out of tonight genuinely not liking each other. Hedman scored from Stamkos and Johnson at 7:46, and the interesting thing about that was this is again a game where the Predators give up that first goal, even though they're heavily out shooting the opposition. The Predators get a power play. The shots heavily favored the Preds throughout that period. Just couldn't figure out Vasilevsky. So we go into the second period with a 1-0 game for Tampa, even though they only had 3 shots in the first period. Frustrating, right? Second period, Yarncroke scored from Turris at 6 minutes and 13 seconds. Kyle Turris has been a healthy scratch a lot lately for Nashville. Gets into the lineup tonight and shows maybe he should stay there. Palat, however, would score from Kucherov and Shattenkirk at 6:44. So 31 seconds after they tie it, Tampa says nope, and they take the lead back. And not only that, but Tampa was playing better in the second period than in the first. They were driving a lot more of the play, putting a lot more pucks on the net, and Rene played a lot better in that second period than in the first. At the very least, he saw a lot more pucks in the second than he did in the first. Third period, play's been even since the first. The Bolts get a power play. Verhaeghe had a breakaway that was stopped by Rene. So Verhaeghe still looking for his first NHL goal. Predators got a power play, and on that power play, it was a check to the head. And Department of Player Safety has to look at this. First off, it's a check to the head. I'm pretty sure it automatically goes to NHL Department of Player Safety. Eric Chernak, who just came back from suspension with a check to the head. And I thought it looked pretty bad. Nashville, the fans, the team, the coach, everybody thought it should have been 5. And I can't argue that it shouldn't have. I honestly thought that was a pretty brutal looking play. And because Chernak just came back from suspension, it makes it harder to just say, he was playing hard and I'm sure it was accidental. Makes it really difficult to make that argument when he just came back from a suspension. Turris, power play goal from Ekholm and Ellis at 9:51. Just wondering, though, how Marchand was involved or how Tom Wilson will get suspended for it. All kidding aside. So Nashville ties it up on a power play goal on that power play with Chernak. And you could feel like the Predators got kind of fired up off of that. Like, they were not impressed that this guy was still in the game. The game was getting very physical. You get matching minors soon after that. The Predators got a power play a bit after that. It was getting really chippy in that third period. The Bolts got a power play with 4 minutes left, and there were some really good chances on that power play, and Pekka Rinne stood tall in net, would not allow it. The Predators' net crashed with a minute and 28 seconds left, and Vasilevsky kept them out. So we go to overtime. The puck control was mostly Tampa's throughout that overtime. The shots would reflect that, and then Kucherov scored from Stamkos and Sergachev at 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Tampa wins this one 3-2. Very important couple of points for Tampa. Tampa, who are currently not in a playoff spot, knowing that other teams that they're chasing, and in case they won, in case they lost. So overall, Tampa's trying to make the argument that they belong in a playoff spot while probably watching it fade just a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Vasilevsky saves 30 out of 32. Rinne saved 20 out of 31. 28 out of 31. 3 stars, Kucherov, Turris, and Rinne. I would have given Vasilevsky the 3rd star, but that's just me. Power plays, Tampa 0 for 3. Predators 1 for 4. The shots were 13-3 Nashville in the first and favored Tampa from there. 15-11 in the second, 10-7 in the third, 3-1 in the overtime. Final shots 32-31 in favor of the Nashville Predators. This isn't updated. Not really worried about that tonight because we discussed the standings and who would play who a lot, so I didn't update that after tonight's games yet. That being said, I now need to change boards. Dallas. And we're back. It was a fun 14-1-1 record they had going over the last week and a bit. Basically, since the return of Roope Hintz. I can't say that Roope Hintz has anything but awesome things in his game, but it just feels like everything changed when he came back. I'm sure it's a coincidence, but tonight Ehlers scored from Pionk and Sbiza at 7:45, and coming out of that first period, the Stars had 3 shots in a road game against a team that's a division rival, a game you need to win, against a team you're going to need to beat if you're going to actually hold on to or get a playoff spot. And second period, Stars get a power play. You know what that means. Their power play sucks. Connor would score from Scheifele and Morrissey at 7:56. Less than 4 minutes later, Morrissey scores from Ehlers and Wheeler, which is fun to say back-to-back, Ehlers and Wheeler, at 11 minutes and 12 seconds. The Jets got a power play. Laine took one pretty quick after that. It's an extended 4-on-4. But the Jets at that point were about double the shots that the Stars had. The Stars would wake up. Heiskanen scores from Sekera and Janmark at 17:59 to make it 3-1. But a minute and a half later, Laine scores from Scheifele and Connor. So at 19:29, it's 4-1 going into the third. And yeah, the Jets were defending pretty well in that third period. Heiskanen had a break. He shot it wide. And their lack of scoring is apparent. It is alarming because this was figured out over that extended fantastic run they had. But now it's back. Scheifele would score from Laine and Connor at 13:59 just to rub their noses in it, I guess. Winnipeg comes out of tonight with a 5-1 win, and after some of the losses Winnipeg took early in the year, I don't blame them for putting a thumping on a team when they have the chance. Hudobin saved 25 out of 30. Hellebuck saves 27 out of 28. He continues the incredible run he's been on. Scheifele, Ehlers, and Connor are your 3 stars. You could have argued Laine belonged in the 3 stars. You could have argued Hellebuck belonged in the 3 stars. You could have made a lot of arguments about who belongs in there. The Jets were that good tonight, and the Stars weren't. Power plays, both teams went 0 for 3. It was really, Dallas really needed a power play goal in that second period at the start of it, and they couldn't get it. So that's where the Dallas Stars are at. The shots were 8-3 in favor of Winnipeg in the first, 13-11 Winnipeg in the second. In the third, 14-11 in favor of the Dallas Stars. Final shots 30-28. The shots even out. But again, by the time Dallas really woke up and started playing well, they were already behind by 3. So you can't be doing that in Winnipeg. So the good news too, if you're a Winnipeg fan, is this is a big win at home. They showed they could win on the road. Now it looks like they're going to be able to win at home. And if you're a Dallas fan, the road Dallas Stars might be back. Remember last year when I used to get mad because they couldn't win on the road and they won everything at home? We'll see if we're heading back to that this year. That being said, moving along. Ottawa. If you subtract the first period from this game, Ottawa would have come out of it with a much better result. It was Burrow's Ring of Honor night. Much like in Montreal, it was Captain's night. So they had this long, extended preamble with Burrows. Honestly, I was watching other things. So they have Burrows added to the Ring of Honor, and the crowd goes nuts, and there were Alex Burrows chants throughout the night. Roussel would score from Gaudette at 150. This is noteworthy because Roussel, this is his first game in the Canucks lineup this year, and he is good friends with Alex Burrows. Now, people who know the personalities of Burrows and Roussel would go, that checks out. Pearson scored from Tanev at 428. And then Nilsson denied a second for Roussel. Roussel almost got another one. Pettersson would score from Besser and Miller on the power play at 13:58. And then Zach McEwen with his first NHL goal from Jordy Ben and Chris Tanev at 17:23. It's 4-0 after 1. This is what happens with Anders Nilsson sometimes, that he'll have those hot streaks, and they are always followed by some ugly games like this. So another ugly stat line for Nilsson coming out of tonight, and an ugly stat line for the Senators after 1. The nice thing, though, if you're a Senators fan, is while they're down 4-0, they don't stop playing. They don't give up. And I put the first note for the second is Canucks can't get sloppy. And they kind of did. Hogberg started the second. So Hogberg got some action in here. Miller had a shot that went right through the crease behind the goaltender. Connor Brown that had a breakaway that was denied by Demko. Demko would set a record, a career high for saves in a game tonight. Pajot scores from Tkachuk and Duclair at 11:59. So Jean-Gabriel Pajot continues his incredible run. And honestly, the Sens kind of dominated that second period. They were really, really good in that second period. They get a power play, but their power play sucks. And I say that with all affection for Ottawa. Third period, Ennis scored from Chabot and White at 40 seconds. That was the goal that was right after the end of a power play, so they weren't allowed to score it on the power play. They had to wait till the guy was out of the box. And I wrote on the board, because I was 4-2, and I thought, not again. And it's insane how Canuck fans, I don't know if I'm the only one that had that reaction, but it feels like we're kind of stressed when you have a 3-goal lead and it becomes 2. Like, not again. It can't happen again, right? The Pittsburgh and Washington games kind of stick with you. Pajot then almost got one. The Canucks go to the power play. Horvat had a breakaway. It was stopped. Fantenberg would score his first as a Vancouver Canuck from Virtanen and Gaudette at 7:34. And you could go, okay, it's 5-2. It's good. 14 seconds later, the Senators scored. Nemesnikov puts it in the net. The Canucks think about it, and just as the whistle's going to go and they're going to drop the puck, he goes, yeah, no, we're challenging for offside. And I thought, oh, well, all right. Normally, if a team challenges for offside, they're normally right. Normally. I say normally because there are still times where they'll be wrong and they take the penalty. They were right, and the goal came off the board. And the Senators ended up getting a power play shortly thereafter. But after that goal didn't count, the Canucks played better. It was like they realized how loosey-goosey they were playing it and how lucky they were that play was offside. Because it was a legit goal. It's not like he was 6 feet offside or anything. He just had to skate up instead of on the ice. If his skate had been on the ice, he's not offside. So they were very lucky. And then after that, they locked it down. They ended up winning the game 5-2. I also think that when that goal didn't count, I think that took some of the wind out of the sails for the Senators. Nilsson saved 11 out of 15. Hogberg saved 13 out of 14. Demko saved 40 out of 42. Like I said, that's a career high with 40 saves for Demko. Canucks goaltenders are not allowed to have shutouts, though. This is a thing. It's gone on for years. The reason that Markstrom doesn't get shutouts is not anything on Markstrom. It's because the Canucks just don't play defense well enough to get their goaltenders shutouts. 3 stars are Gaudette, McEwen, and Roussel. It's hard to argue with those stars, but it's hard to argue with Demko making 40 saves too, and not saying it belongs there. Notable as well as the 5 goals for Vancouver, and Quinn Hughes isn't on the board. Power plays 0 for 3 for Ottawa because their power play sucks. 1 for 2 for Vancouver. Shots are 16-15 for Ottawa in the first, 12-6 Ottawa in the second, 14-8 Ottawa in the third. They outshot Vancouver 42-29. That's why I got nervous in that third period. All right. Next up, Capitals. This ended up being a stomping. Really, in all honesty, I think this was the most lopsided victory of the night. I understand that the Philadelphia one was by more goals, but this felt like more of a complete destruction rather than just a late meltdown. Melker Karlsson scored from Dillon and Ferraro at 2:33, and I thought this could be a really entertaining game. Jones looked good, so I put on the board. Jones looked good again. Hathaway scored from Karlsson and Dowd at 13:31. Less than a minute later, Vrana scored from Karlsson and Oshie. I'm getting ahead of myself at 14:24, and I put on the board, I jinxed Jones. Sorry. Because not too long after I put Jones looks good again, those 2 goals going in. And then Karlsson scored from Kempny at 16:32, and honestly, I didn't think that was a great goal. I thought Jones should have had that, and this is where his save percentage starts to show up again. Gambrell late in that period had a post. So if that goal had gone in rather than hitting the post and deflecting away from the net, we might have had a more tense game from there. In the second period, Hathaway gets a goal from Dowd. This Hathaway goal in the first, it didn't look like necessarily he touched it. Maybe it should have been Karlsson's. If that eventually changes to Karlsson, it wouldn't surprise me. But Hathaway, this was his second goal of the game at 2:31. There's a scrum at about 6:23, and coming out of that, the Capitals get a power play. They didn't score on that one. Vrana would get a goal from Eller and Orlov at 16:15. So it is 5-1 in favor of the Capitals after 2 periods. Third period, Holtby stopped Thornton. So Joe Thornton is not allowed to have a goal this year. This has been decided upon, I guess. The Caps had 0 shots in the first half of that period. So they were sitting on the lead. Absolutely sitting on the lead. Kane would score from Melker Karlsson at 13:07. Kane had an interesting way of celebrating this. He sort of gloved. Now, they kicked him out of the game for an elbow. They said it was a 5-minute elbow for Kane. Now, I saw it from a couple angles that it was a forearm. I don't know that the elbow necessarily caught him, but it was a dangerous hit. And they were lucky Gudas got back up from that. And that led to some unhappiness from both teams. And everybody on the Caps bench jumped up. So they review the play, and Kane goes from a 2-minute penalty to a 5. So this, again, is the change that took place in the way that referees call penalties. If it's going to be a major, go sit in the box. We're going to look at it. And they went, yep, that's a 5-minute major for elbowing. Again, it didn't look like elbowing to me. But since it's 5 in a game, again, the Department of Player Safety may be looking at this one tomorrow. And Kane, it was a dangerous hit by Kane. I was really surprised at just how verbal he was towards the referee. So he gets over to the bench. He's there with Thornton. They're both being verbal with the ref. And Tom Wilson, because he's right there, because the benches are like yay far apart, starts beaking off. So you've got your play-by-play and color guy. Well, the color guy is in between the 2 benches, and I'm trying not to laugh while I'm describing this, because seriously, he'd stop talking, and the mic's up. And there's Wilson, cursing, said something about, called Thornton an old man, said something about sitting up in the press box, and then mentioned his Stanley Cup ring. So, Wilson burned him, and that's after Kane had already made his exit. I didn't see Thornton stand up and say anything back to Wilson. Can I use this as an example of how we need an NHL live feed? Gary Bettman, if you watch this, please listen to me. We need an NHL live feed where there's no announcers and we just have players mic'd up. We can have the microphones at the benches and there's no announcers. You don't have to pay for announcers. It's no problem. And we would just listen to the players talk to each other. It would be amazing. We would have so many quotes. my notes would completely change, and this channel would probably be restricted to ages 18 and up. There are some downsides to this, but man, would they be entertaining. We could have chirp of the night. We could have top 10 chirps of the week. Just it was fantastic. And just the fact that the announcer's just sort of standing there, and his eyes are kind of glassed over like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Turn your mic off. What are you doing? Normally, guys turn their mics off. The CBC, not CBC, Sportsnet. There is no CBC hockey anymore. It's carried on CBC, but Sportsnet has it. They always turn their mics off. That's okay. Got just turn that off. Nope. I had to, and you'll hear them after. I had to, Louis DeBrusque. I had to turn my mic off. They were saying some stuff. Sometimes they'll turn the mic back on and they'll be laughing about what they heard, and they'll be like, I can't repeat it, but it was good. So we need access to this information. In this day and age, we need to understand what's going on with these players. I think it would be delightful. Holtby saved 23 out of 25 in the very entertaining victory between two teams that hate each other, and they're very eventful games, even though they only play each other twice a year. Jones saved 18 out of 23. That's a .783 save percentage tonight. Dell saved all 5 shots that he faced in the third period. Carlson, Vrana, Hathaway are your 3 stars. The Capitals go for 2 on the power play. San Jose didn't get a power play, and yet San Jose's penalty kill moves up even further. They've only allowed 3 power play goals at home all year. Fantastic. Shots favored the Caps in the first and the second, 13-10 and 10-7. And in the third, the shots were 8-5 in favor of San Jose. Please, Gary Bettman, please give us a hockey feed where we don't have to listen to the announcers. I swore during the Nashville broadcast with Tampa, I was going insane listening to Pierre Maguire talking over John Forsland and apologizing for it while interrupting him. I'm bewildered. Just not adding anything, just talking over him and not adding anything to the conversation. I thought that was a really good play. Why are you interrupting him? Just give us the feed we want. Let us hear the players on the bench just talking to each other and talking to the other team. Just give us that. Please, NHL. That'd be fantastic. We'll sign whatever waiver we have to. Foul language doesn't really offend us as hockey fans. If foul language offends people, being near benches, being within hearing distance of hockey players, you're going to hear some language. That being said, we're now done for tonight. We've got 4 games tomorrow. I'll be doing that review early tomorrow morning, so look forward to that. That being said, thank you guys so much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing right through. You just happened upon this video. Past 128,400 today, about 410 I think we're at right now. So cruising on towards the 129,000 and then hopefully 130 and bigger and better from there. And if we ever get access to players on the bench talking to each other, please, maybe Spitting Chicklets can work something out. Like Paul Bissonnette, they can. Somebody somewhere has to be able to make this happen. It's got to be a thing. I'm convinced after this game tonight, it has to be a thing. I laughed pretty hard. I gotta admit, I laughed pretty hard after I heard what Wilson said, even though I only heard some of it. Anyways, entertaining. Let me know your thoughts though about this and everything else that happened tonight, and I will talk to you again soon.